Okay, so this is, I don't know exactly how I'm going to go about this. I'm going to be figuring out a lot of it as I go, kind of as I figure it out. I have a pretty set idea for things, but at the same time, obviously, things tend to break down differently as they go along. And I'm trying to take the a sound amount of time to figure my shit out, but I'm also not trying to dilly dally. So a lot of this is the whole point is kind of to wing it and to not know exactly what I'm doing. And yeah, so what I'm doing is the biggest goal is to show people what it looks like to be able to trust yourself and to move on faith and to use what resources you have essentially and of yourself in order to get where it is that you want to go and do what it is that you want to do. Most of these videos are not just going to be me going through the day-to-day process of things, but also deeply explaining my thought processes behind things, the reasons that I do things, the belief systems that I have that kind of found a lot of my decision making. I want to try to give as clear of a picture as possible of my life experience up until this point that has allowed me to gain access to this opportunity, as well as the I want to be honest about everything. I want to be honest about who I am, what it is that I'm dealing with, um, just as a person, and then how all of this is kind of cultivated to this point. Because I want people to not have to live the life that I've lived. I want people to live the lives they want to live. But I believe that sharing as honestly and like detailed as I can my life, myself, how I've come to this point, and now how I'm pushing through to this, that allows for people to kind of take whatever they want and can from that. And, that's something that in my life I've become accustomed to. People will always take whatever they want from you if you don't have proper boundaries set up against those things. And in my opinion, so freedom is like my end goal for all things. As much freedom as we can possibly have access to within this reality, which is always going to be, we live in a dichotomy because we live in a third dimension. So everything is always going to end up being a balance of opposition. But the actual innate negativity, not even negativity, because that's not even bad. We tend to affiliate negativity or lack with badness. And I don't believe that good or evil, I think everything is good. I don't believe that evil exists. I think that it's a matter of perspective. I use the term to define things in our social reality that I think evil is a concept that everybody seems to agree on, but they don't actually agree on definitively what it is. They more just like a lot of people can agree what it is when it comes to what it ends up looking like in experience, but most people have not been able to definitively say this is what evil is, aside from just hurting other people. But even that socially, there's so many different there's just so many different ways that those things break down. So, sorry. I don't believe in any of it. I think that even people that are intending to be evil are just misled at best, misdirected. I think that if people truly knew themselves and knew their power and knew their value, that they wouldn't do the things that they do and wouldn't live the ways that they live. I don't think I'm some great person. I think I'm a piece of trash. I think I'm literally the dumbest fuck. I think I'm awful. I'm aware of that. When people feel those ways about me, I don't blame them. Like it's not about like being humble or being prideful. Like I try to be as real as possible, and I'm aware that I'm not like some perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. And I say that a lot, but like because I truly 100% mean it. I don't think I'm better than anyone else, anyone, anyone. And I've met a lot of people, and I've met people that have all sorts of things that they would consider disabilities, but I don't think that anybody's incapable of knowing themselves and coming to their highest form of wholeness within themselves. And I think that when we access that, that is the gift that we're able to give the world. And it looks different for everybody. But that's why, like, there's people who, you know, can be actors and it doesn't mean shit. And there's, even if they're really, really good actors, but then there's actors who, like, you know, you can say whatever you want about them, but they're still giving a gift to the world. And what it is a self-actualization. Not everything is meant for everybody just because they want to do it. And the way that I saw it the other day that it was put was that people can be, can share your mindset and agree with you when intellectually about essentially anything, but still not be on the same wavelength that you are. And it all comes down to the processes, the unseen processes that we're all experiencing on an individual basis. And to me, that's what I would consider like, I was raised Christian, so I tend to use a lot of religious terminology to describe what I believe is a common non-spiritual existence. Um, I think that everything is very real, and I think that religion in of itself tends to take away from that reality, but I think that it's an essential crutch for those that would tend towards self-delusion, because it allows that capacity to delude oneself to find a sense of discipline. And in that, you can come to yourself and then truly know yourself. But I think that it is very difficult to come to a true point of clarity of self if you are a deluded person without first processing some external form of discipline, whatever that looks like. For some people, you know, for a lot of people that don't end up religious, they end up deluding themselves with like substances. So like AA and different 12-step programs, sex addiction was what I went to. But addiction in of itself is like a common way that people, it's no different than religion. You know, it's still, there's some people that those things are fine for, you know, like, but it's just like, I've never been much of a drinker. I've never really abused alcohol as like a common thing or whatever. I would normally only get drunk maybe a couple times a year, maybe, and that would be at like major parties with lots of people that I trusted, because I just never felt safe being drunk, and because I was raised not to drink. So it just wasn't really part of my reality. I mean, my ex-husband was an alcoholic. My dad died being an alcoholic. You know, I was raised with a lot of my cousins and stuff being alcoholics and stuff, and like I was around it all the time. I just wasn't necessarily prone to it. But when I hit the age that my dad was when he died, when I was officially about to become older than he had ever been, um, that kind of fucked me up. And so at that point, I started drinking. This was back in 2020. I did drink for about 4 months straight, just over 4 months, where I just woke up one day and decided that that's what I was going to do. I was kind of hoping it was going to drive me into the ground, to be honest. But I just woke up and started drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. And I don't think I finished the whole bottle the first day. I think it took about a week before I was drinking just the bottle a day. Like the liters or whatever the fuck they are. I don't know. I don't even know what it was. I just was drunk all day long. And I don't know. I've learned through my tendencies to kind of abuse myself in those ways, where my power really lies. You know, I put my power into those other things, and coming out of it, I was able to realize like, that's not who I really am. Those things, you know, all of these external things have, you know, because I grew up Christian. I was Christian, and I wholeheartedly believed that. And then I started pursuing other religions as an attempt to just become more understanding. But I never, after I stopped affiliating with Christianity, I stopped affiliating with all religions, in like any sort of committed sense. I started affiliating with all religions in a practical sense. Um, and even then, like, that's, it's been a process of releasing and removing all of these different things, external validations that I've used to identify myself by. And those things aren't truly me. And granted, a lot of those things, like these external, you know, like resources, essentially have, like a crutch, allowed me to learn how to walk better on my own. They have given me the strength to get to that point. So I don't mean to damn any of those things, but I do tend to talk in extremes when I talk about these things, in my idealism, because uh, so I have an ideal that I'm constantly working towards, and then I have my active reality, which is both the result of who I am as a person, being as immature, unhealed as I can tend to be, and mixed with this society that is also sick, that I'm trying to enact change within. So the ideal, the goal, is never what you end up actually seeing. And when I communicate things, I tend to communicate in a way where I communicate those ideals, and I try to communicate them as, you know, like in as commonly as possible. Like, I try to do it in layman's terms. I try to do it in ways where it seems sensible, it seems doable. And then I actively try to work those things out. And I, show for myself all of the ways that, like, that I still need to work these, concepts out. These theories, like, might not always add up, or they do. It just takes consistent work that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And so then when I find the ways that it works, I have to find systems I can establish to help other people kind of get a leg up in that way. So it's an entire process, for sure. And the entire process, I would say, sums up as just self-actualization, which is in of itself a step process of sentience, becoming self-aware, becoming self-accountable, and then becoming accountable to the world around you. And for me, because I grew up religiously, I did not have a concept of self. I didn't have my own identity. I was completely um, bought into religion, into my addictions, into just anything that wasn't truly who I am. And all of these things really not just weakened me, but held me back, for so long. And at the point that I'm at now, and through all the work that I've done the work, and I've found ways to be, released from those things, and ways to move through those things, and to become stronger because of those things, and to overcome those things. And if I can do it, fucking anyone can. But I think a lot of times people don't know themselves well enough to know what their process would look like. And so I want to just let people know me as well as I know myself, if that's even possible, which I don't think even that's possible. I can try to convey myself as honestly as possible and as vulnerably as possible, and people will still receive whatever they choose to receive. However, my point, my process, the entire intent behind all of this is to be as vulnerable as possible, as honest as possible, to let people know me as well as they possibly ever could know me, in order to understand the process. And the whole point isn't that people would follow me directly in the process that I'm going through. This is my process. This is what I've learned through my life. Um, this is my driving force. I think it's different for every individual, and it's up for them to decide what theirs is. And the more in alignment people are with their true paths, then, you know, that's when we interact with people, we genuinely connect with them, and we stop having these, like, karmic relationships where I thought that I was in alignment with this person because we agreed about this thing or this thing, or we got along about this thing and this thing. But then you find that, like, they're actually technically not an enemy, because they're just working towards a separate goal than you are, or even towards a goal that is in defiance to your goal. And when all of it breaks down, I personally believe that, like, if we truly knew ourselves and we're truly in alignment with ourselves, we would be truly in alignment with everything else around us. And that competition wouldn't exist. It exists because we don't know ourselves. It exists because we conceive a need for compromise, or we conceive conflict, and thus manifest it. But I don't believe that those things actually exist. I think that if we are unified within ourselves, then we are truly unified within the rest of the universe. That both come. That's the way that the singularity works. I call it the singularity of being, but it is the singularity of being, and it denotes everything by denoting itself. So the more that you know yourself, the more that the world will reveal itself to you, and the less tied down to anything that you don't actually agree with or feel like resonates with you, you'll be like, so many people identify themselves by so many different things that they don't want to be identified by, but it's because they don't know themselves and they don't even know where to begin to gain access to that. And as much as I've tried to process it, I can't necessarily figure that out for myself even. So I'm just hoping that this process kind of does that for me, and that in that it allows that for other people too. I think that I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this because this is what my life has led up to, but I'm putting it out there in as vulnerable a way as possible with the hopes that anyone who receives it will be able to learn from it and will be able to benefit from it and will be able to take something that helps them get closer to themselves. Because I don't think I'm the answer. I don't think that I necessarily even have the answer until I can prove that I have it within myself, at least. And, I don't want people looking to me as an ideal in any sense. I want to be an example of what everybody can be for themselves. And so I want anybody to be able to rely on me, communicate with me, ask me questions, get advice, but without idolizing me or putting me on a pedestal as if I'm capable of anything anyone else isn't. You know what I mean? Like, I truly believe that any capacity that I have for what another person could perceive as greatness is merely just an aspect of themselves that they may not necessarily recognize yet. Um, and again, it doesn't matter to me like what disability a person may or may not have or how they view themselves in that way. They still have their power. They just are missing how to gain access to it. And so this whole process is just me trying to get down to the nitty gritty of what that looks like and what that means. And hopefully, just hopefully it's a blessing to anyone who receives it, as much as it's guaranteed to be a blessing for me, because I've spent the last years working towards this. So I'm quite excited to just prove myself to myself, more than anything. I don't even have to prove myself. I already know I can do it. This is about just living and just being able to enjoy my life for once. Because I've been working so hard to get to this point, and it's not a retirement; it's still an active working. And I just really want to get these mindsets out there and these concepts out there, because I think that they can really help encourage people through an increasingly hard time that we seem to be having in society, especially like socially, interpersonally, and emotionally. So that's that, and I'll get back to this as I kind of figure out what I'm doing. I'm planning on getting out of here within the next couple days. It's about to be the 4th of July. I would like to celebrate my independence this way and start this off right away. So what I'm doing is just getting all my ducks in a row before then, and I will hit you back in the next step.